This program has been made possible by the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel Media Network, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
When you partner with Mesilla Valley Transportation, you can count on a group of hardworking professionals that make sure your freight is secure, handled with care, and delivered on time. We have proudly been moving America's cargo since 1982, starting with local businesses to now transporting for Fortune 500 companies. We invest in the industry's most advanced technology when it comes to dispatching, logistics, and safety. You can trust that our customers are our number one priority. Every day we drive our company to be the best, and that's why we drive for you.
Hello, I'm Arturo Uribe with Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement, and welcome to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum. Because of the pandemic, we've had to think of new ways to engage with the candidates, and it's been an interesting time and challenge for all of us. So because of the pandemic, we are here in the studio practicing social distancing. We were wearing our mask when we came in, and we have plexiglass in between our commentators and with the candidates. I wanted to share the Safe Sets International COVID-19 certificate. This was for the studio here, and that we are certified safe for the COVID. So that's something that I really wanted to share with you all. And I think it's important that we are able to come together with our candidates. So this will be live streaming on Facebook, where the viewing audience will be able to ask questions. It will also be on Twitter and YouTube, but you can ask the questions on Facebook Live at the Las Cruces channel. This is going to be a different show. This show, we had invited our candidates, and in this one, we were able to have some of the candidates confirm, but one of the candidates today in the last hour was, called us up and said that she wasn't able to make it. She was busy. The other candidate didn't make it, said right from the get-go that she wasn't going to come out, and that she didn't think that it was important enough for her to engage with us in a way that we were trying to do. She said some things about the COVID and the pandemic and about socially distancing and being safe, and like I said, we all are here doing just that. One of the things that I really want people to know is that it's important for us as voters to be informed voters, to know who the candidates are that are asking for our votes, and that we do the research. And in times before, in the past, candidates would come knocking on your door. You'd be able to go to a forum. You'd be able to engage with them. They would come to our communities. We would have opportunities to ask questions. And that's precisely why we're doing this. So when the candidates can't make it or don't show up, it makes me wonder just how important our votes are to them. And I think it should matter to all of us as voters that when candidates do show up, especially now with this pandemic, I think it's really important. It shows a lot about the candidates and how important we are to them asking for our votes. It's ultimately us who put them in office. With that, I want to turn to my commentators and carry this conversation on just a little bit more before we introduce our candidate. But Shirley, Austin, you guys have been working in the community. How different has it been in this election cycle? Shirley.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the viewing audience tonight. I'm E. Shirley Baca, former state representative and PRC commissioner. Currently, I work for the state senate in Santa Fe during session. And thanks to our moderator, Arturo Uribe, and to my co-commentator, Austin Trout. Thank you for that question, Arturo, because I think that more than ever, it is so important for the viewing audience to be informed, to hear what the candidates in their district and district-wide, because ultimately people that get elected serve all of us in Doña Ana County and in New Mexico. And it's important to listen to what the candidates' perspective, their view, their point of view, and their knowledge of what they want to do for the community. And because of the pandemic, just as you said, Arturo, I personally have not seen a lot of activity. I think there's a couple, there's a public television station, there's a public radio station that I hear some of the candidates being involved in, and then the newspaper, the Las Cruces News, has had a commentary every day with each particular race, and they have both candidates or three candidates whenever there's a write-in or an independent or a libertarian. And so I think it's very, very important for us to have these public forums. I want to thank the Las Cruces channel for doing this, and for the Center for Community Engagement, because this is how we're going to listen and learn from the candidates and what their ideas and their platform is going to be should they be elected.
Austin, Trout.
Hello everybody, Austin Trout here. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you to all who got me here. I have to agree. Right now, it's the temperature of the country, the kind of civil unrest that's happening. It's very important for our leaders to go above and beyond to let us know why they can lead us into a better position or a better place than where we are now. I understand that this COVID has caused everybody's plans to be put on hold or canceled, but at the same time, we're still living, and the civil unrest did not go on pause, even though COVID was making everything else stop. So it's very important, I think, for the candidates to be able to, to come in and take the advantage, or take every opportunity they can to come in and tell us why they can make this country better for the next, however long the term is. And for those that are afraid for their health, it's understandable. We all are. So who are we going to put into office in order to help stop what's making us afraid, right? And if we all are afraid, then then maybe you shouldn't be the leader at the time. So it is very important to take full advantage of all these opportunities that we are trying to present, so that way we can engage with our future leaders.
Again, I just want to reiterate that we thank the candidates that have showed up, and again, I want to say thank you for all of you guys participating. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Mr. Chuck Wendler, running for State Senate District 38. Mr. Wendler, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Arturo. I'm going to take off the mask. Since you showed us we have been certified here, that's quite an accomplishment. I commend you for doing that. That being said, I'm Charles Chuck Wendler. I'm running for State Senate here in New Mexico, District 38, and I think that area has been described to the viewing audience. And I certainly want to thank everyone for putting this together. This is kind of an unusual situation, I think, because it's an unusual circumstance. So the work that goes in, having been a school principal for a number of years, I understand, I think more fully than some, just what it takes to put together a program, all the legwork behind the scenes and everything to do that. I am disappointed that my opponent's not here this evening. I was really looking forward to a good, honest, sincere, civil discussion about issues. And so, anyway, it is what it is. 37 years I spent in the school business, teacher, science composite, math, chemistry, physics, biology, etc. Then I got into school administration, about 25 years of that or so. I was at the district's at-risk coordinator for a while too. Maybe they thought I was the one at risk, I don't know, but anyway, here I am. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that and working with at-risk populations and so forth and so on. My wife and I have been small business owners for over 45 years, so I have spent time in both the public and private sector. We've been blessed with 3 wonderful children, and I'll have to admit I'm just a proud parent here right now. So our older son, Christian, Air Force Academy graduate, spent 20 years in. He's now retired, and he's teaching ROTC at a high school in Virginia. And our middle child is, say child, she's older than that, but anyway, she's Doctor of Optometry. And then our youngest one, Carlos, civil engineer, processing engineer, chemical engineer, I'm sorry, graduated from New Mexico State University. He works at home, he's a consultant. So we've been truly blessed with 3 wonderful children, 6 great grandchildren, on and on and on. So my wife and I have been married for 54 years, and she tells folks that she deserves a Purple Heart, and you know what? She's absolutely right. So you know how we men are sometimes. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, and I really, I'll be honest, I've run for office for 4 times now, and my wife tells me, you shouldn't say that. And she says, people will think you're, one of those that just, and I say, well, no, wait a minute, I'm just showing you that I really am a public servant. I'm not a politician. I like to emphasize that, please. 37 years in the school business, okay? I think qualifies me to be able to say that. And when you see things that you just feel like, that's not quite right. And of course, everybody's got their own opinion, okay? But in my opinion, there's some things that could be done differently, tweaked, whatever. And it saddens me when people says, well, our country's broken. No, it needs to be mended. True. We need to tweak things. And goodness says that if you look down through history, we have had our challenges. And you notice I didn't say problems. It's all about the words. I term things as challenges. It's whether the glass is half empty or half full kind of thing, And so I really work hard at being an optimist. Having been a school principal, I was trained to evaluate personnel. I've evaluated hundreds and hundreds of personnel, not only teachers, but my assistants, the cafeteria manager, custodians, the list goes on and on and on. And so I feel pretty comfortable. Well, I feel very comfortable in the classroom evaluating personnel, and that was just my job. And I worked very, very hard at maintaining the dignity of the individuals, knowing that they're wanting to put beans on the table like all of us. And so you need to be very, very careful and diligent and conscientious about your work and what you're doing. And so I've also evaluated the programs. Being the principal of a school, I mean, the buck stops there. Let me assure you, when people walk into that building, they go straight for the office. I want to see the principal, okay? So the buck stops there. So I sit across the desk with many, many people, parents, attempting to resolve situations that are conflicts, quite frankly. And I always liked it when you could give a little piece of the pie to everybody. That's kind of one of the things that I had in my mind. And another thing I worked on was, when I got into, a lot of things after a while, you get into a rhythm of things, and so many things are kind of a routine, but once in a while, you say, this is a tough case. How am I going to handle this one? And I stop and think. I said, well, you know what? If this Janie, Johnny, Lupe, Jose, et cetera, was my child, what would I do? And when I put it in that perspective, I said, okay, let's look at it that way. Because that's what we got to do, folks. Mm-hmm. Every person out there is a human being that's entitled to the dignity, respect, whether it's your own child or someone else's child. I mean, parents trust that they're sending their child to your school to be safe and to have the education that they deserve to have. And I took that very seriously, providing a positive learning environment for kids. So I can go on and on. You can cut me off whenever you want me to. And
Well, since you are here alone without the other candidates, we are going to have questions from our commentators.
Sure.
You'll have a minute and a half to answer. When the minute comes, I'll put up the yellow card.
Okay.
When the minute and a half is over, the red card will come up. And then we have questions coming from the viewing audience.
Yes, sir.
So, but yes, you're here by yourself, so we gave you a little bit more time
Correct.
to introduce yourself and share your thoughts. The district, I mean, this is an open seat district. I'm originally from Mesquite, so, our senator was Mary Kay Papin, and she was a great senator for our community and what she did for the Colonias Infrastructure Trust Fund, the Colonias Initiative, our community parks. So I've worked with her on many projects in our community. The community, registration breakdown is there's about 12,700 registered Democrats, and Republicans about 5,838 registered Republicans, and then 7,245 independents or did not state. The majority of those folks are of Hispanic Mexicano descent, so it's a pretty large Mexicano community. So, it goes from Berino, Bosque, out into Cruces. And Shirley, I know you know the district pretty well, if you want to share.
Yes, I think it's one of the most varied, and it's also, as you said, it's 66% Hispanic, of which the largest part of the Hispanics are Mexicanos. So it's really got its uniqueness. It also goes as far north in Las Cruces as the North Alameda district, and then goes into the downtown of Las Cruces. A lot of it is the overlap of when I was in the House of Representatives. That was some of the area that I represented. And then it has the Bellama area, which is very blue collar. It's up there by University Hills and Carl Conley and Valley View and those areas. And then it includes New Mexico State University, and it has Mesilla and Mesilla Park and a lot of agricultural areas. So it's very, very diverse, and there's a large percentage of it that's blue collar, working class, a large percentage that's agricultural, and then you've got some that are a little bit more, let's say, in the technology or the upper middle class area. But it's a big variety of area that you would represent should you be elected to the Senate, Mr. Wendler.
And it's one of the few seats. The other race was with County Commission District 4. When we reached out to those folks, Susana Chaparro is one of the candidates that was running. She was sick. She wasn't able to make it. Buck Bonner just never responded, and Stacy Durham at the last hour said she couldn't make it. Your district with Carrie Hamblin, and again, another open seat. So, people and voters don't know who you guys are, only from what we're reading in the paper. So I think it's important that I'm glad you're here. I think it would have been important for the other candidates to show up also. Well, with that,
and Arturo, let me add to that too. Not only is it an open seat, it's an open seat. I don't think what the voters of Doña Ana County realize is that Senator Mary Kay Papin was the most powerful senator in New Mexico. She was the president pro tem. She served for 20-some years. She had the ability to bring home the bacon, if you will, and to be involved in all of the committees. So the person that takes this seat has some big shoes to fill, even though she might have not had that big of a foot. They have big shoes to fill, but this is a person that really brought home a lot for for Doña Ana County and in New Mexico. So yes, it's important that this open seat be looked at and how we're going to fill it.
Austin, we'll go ahead and start with the question for Mr. Wendler if you want to open up.
What is one of your main issues that you feel for your district that is important? Not to give her too much attention, but it seemed like one of her first issues, or at least she listed it first, was transportation. Do you feel that this is an important issue? And if not, what is your main issue for your district?
What's jobs? You know, it's always got to be about jobs and the economy, more so than anything else. I mean, you know, it's said time after time we're a poor state. Research shows time after time that unfortunately we're at the bottom of a lot of the socioeconomic indicators. And, you know, let's face it, money makes a difference. Money in the pockets of breadwinners, and it helps to stabilize families. And that's one of my big issues, quite frankly, is family. The family's been eroded so much. So unstable families are anymore, and we can go into a lot of detail on that. But yeah, transportation is important, but I'll tell you what, there are foundational things that hold up everything else, and that's jobs and the economy. You know, when parents can provide money that's necessary to give a good, stable home life, that makes parents proud, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's what we need, okay?
Shirley, if you want.
Well, in that same light, Mr. Wendler, I would like to hear you elaborate a little bit more on how you would develop jobs or develop the economy, because particularly now, because of COVID and so many businesses have gone under or are struggling, what would be some of your ideas to improve the economy and to build on more jobs?
Well, one of the things is the taxes. I mean, taxes takes a big chunk out of a family. Social Security is taxed, for example, and among the older, and there's a lot of grandparents that are raising families now. We know about that, okay? But empowerment zones, you read a lot about some of the different efforts that's been tried, but one of the things I recall off the top of my head was a few short years ago, the land commissioner came out with a publication that said that if our public lands were turned over for private enterprise, there would be a considerable, significant amount of more revenue gained by doing that. Now, I understand that's another issue, okay? But if you really dig into it, you'll find that 13 western states contain about 90%, a little bit more than 90% of all the public lands. So why is that? When the Constitution says, the equal footing doctrine in Article 4, I believe, that every state admitted subsequent to the original 13 are entitled to the same rights and privileges. So, you know, I guess I'm running short on time on that one. Okay. Stop.
Well, yeah, but I still think that, you know, just building on what both Shirley and Austin said is, like, so if we were going to create jobs, like for instance, there's the Vado Speedway that the community, some people were opposing the Vado Speedway, some people like myself really thought it was a great idea. And working in that district, there's been other opportunities to bring in businesses. You know, what vision do you see when you speak about jobs and getting our families to work? What are some of the ideas of type of work that you would be helping that district with?
Well, you mentioned the Vado Speedway down there. You're right about that. But, you know, small businesses has always been the backbone of the country. I think a lot of emphasis has been put on bringing in the big businesses, and understandably so. And they're shooting for lots of money, you know, higher salaries and so on and so on. But, you know, we all start from someplace. And I would emphasize small businesses. I know that there's a lot of regulations on small businesses. Having been a small business person myself for 45 years, I can speak to that. Talking to friends of mine, they're in small businesses. Yeah, they're really encumbered with a lot of regulations, and we're talking about small businesses, mom and pop. Where is the entrepreneurship? Are kids encouraged to go out and to invent and to think of ways of making money? I know people. You see people out on the street, vendors. I see more people than I ever have before with their trucks and their trailers behind doing yard work, as an example. I mean, they're willing to start from someplace to take the initiative to do things on their own. It used to be not too long ago, people were out picking up the aluminum cans, on and on and on. So, we keep thinking so big all the time, which is good, don't get me wrong. But what about scaling it down a little bit and taking the initiative? Because it's all about self-accountability. How can I get involved with this, okay? Instead of waiting for somebody else to give me a job, let me create a job. And then I can hire other people. It's about risk-taking. How many people are willing to take risks to go out there and start something? Okay.
Austin, I think we all went around, so if you want to...
Right. I kind of wanted to build on the public land issue that you brought up. There was a big rally, I want to say a year or two ago, when they wanted to keep the desert mountain peaks and things like that unchanged and whatnot. What are you suggesting? Like selling some of the public land off to private sectors is a good way to start jobs and bring in money. And what does that really look like to you?
Well, it's our land, yes. And I'm a biologist. I got over 50 hours in biology. I could be a tree hugger like anybody else for that matter, and I say that affectionately. I mean it. I've been out in California, seen the redwoods and the sequoias and magnificent organisms. That being said, but there's a trade-off here, folks. And it's been said that if you go and make all these lands in the wilderness, well, do you know what that means? Motorized vehicles can't go out there. I mean, if someone is out there dying or hurt, you can't fly a helicopter in there because no mechanized machinery can get in there. They can't even go in there with even chainsaws to clear the lands and keep it from being a fire hazard, on and on and on. And yes, there's beautiful things out there. I've been out there and seen those things. We'd like for everybody to share in that. But there are other ways to capture that. I mean, the TV station shows the beauty of our land all the time. People can see that from their homes. But, respect the land. But we've also got to be able to take portions of that and make it productive. I mean, land is there to be productive. The good Lord gave us land to produce things. Ranching and agriculture, ranching and farming accounts for about 13% of our revenue for this state. It is a rock-solid revenue source for our state. So again, I'm running out of time. Stop.
All right, Shirley.
I'm interested in this discussion that we're having about land, about jobs and the economy. And one of the things that it seems like you're emphasizing is small businesses. Yet at this time of COVID, those are the first to go. A lot of our small businesses have closed up. Many of them have been eligible to participate in the loans or the funds that are being offered, and they can't for some reason or another. They're not. And so if small businesses is something that you're looking at, how do you address the fact that those are the ones that we're losing right now in the community? And I've heard a lot of people say that even after the country opens up, they're not going to be able to open up.
Well, you're right. I think it's sad when we start classifying businesses as non-essential and essential. Now, anybody who's wanting to start a business, do you think they're going to get into that kind of business environment? New Mexico has a reputation of not being business friendly if you do the research, okay? It's one of those low on the socioeconomic indicators. And so people are discouraged from being risk takers to begin with. So I just wouldn't want to say that, well, you're a non-essential business. I mean, to me, that's not fair. Not fair at all. And we need to be careful how we approach these things. And as senator, that's one of the things that you do in the Senate, you have time to sit down. I say time because it's 4 instead of 2. You're not out just raising money all the time, 2-year cycle. You're on a 4-year cycle. And money, that's another issue, okay, if you want to talk about that. So you can sit down and debate these things, and I would really look forward to sitting down with my colleagues in the Senate and discussing these issues and really look at the long-term ramifications of our decisions, because our decisions impact the whole state, really, not only our district, but the whole state. And I think we are rather short-sighted sometimes on our decisions. And again, I go back to my experience, 37 years as a public servant in the school business. Well, you got to be careful about what you're going to say and what you're going to do, because I'll tell you what, you're going to have a line of people right there facing you as you walk out that door. Anyway, I'm short on time again.
Well, thank you. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a quick little break and come back with some more questions. And you, the viewing audience, if you have any questions you'd like to ask of Mr. Chuck Wendler, this is your opportunity. So thank you.
When I think of MVT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.
Thank you, and welcome back to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum. We're here today with Mr. Chuck Wendler. And we also got a question, kind of interesting, from one of the people that we had invited, Miss Stacy Durham. She's asking you, Mr. Wendler, what would you recommend as a senator to your fellow colleagues for a form or recreation aside from scenic outdoor recreation? And that, I wish I could. I don't understand the question myself, but that's how it came on the Facebook. But I guess he's asking, you know, for a form or recreation aside from the scenic outdoor recreation. I guess what other recreation ideas do you have for?
Well, you know, we've got a lot of recreational areas already. I know at Elephant Butte Lake up there, there's still water up there, thank God for that. And when the kids were little, we used to go up there almost every weekend, you know, and did the boating and the skiing and thing and so on and so on. For an example, and our kids still remember those trips up there to the lake, and afterwards going to the Dairy Queen and getting a blazer, a good treat. I mean, I was kind of tough on them, okay? So to get a little treat, they really remember those things, and I'm really thankful that we build up some good memories, and that's what we're all taking with us in the end anyway, our memories. So build them up. So New Mexico is a wonderful state with so many scenic vistas all over the place. Just coming down off the Oregon, coming into Las Cruces, look at that space. To me, that's freedom when you see that amount of space. So just enjoy what we do have that's already there, folks. I mean, you can go on and list all these different places that you can go to. A day's drive around here. City of Rocks outside of Deming, okay? The museum at Deming. Pancho Villa Park down in Columbus. You ever been down there? And of course, going to Pink Store across the border over there and enjoy our neighbors over there. I mean, the list goes on and on. Silver City and all around up and through there. The copper mines, go and view the vistas there in the copper mine. Santa Rita's no longer there. I remember when it was there, I used to deliver milk for Price's Dairies down in there when I was going to school. But anyway, there's just a lot of places that are already here, okay, in my opinion. Enjoy them.
Shirley.
Yes, I'm going to change the subject a little bit because you mentioned, Mr. Wendler, that one of the things you would do as a senator is prioritizing tax dollars. And so the fact that gas and oil is such a big source of tax dollars in New Mexico, and you want to prioritize tax dollars, and yet it's a non-renewable item and it's volatile in terms of when money comes in and when it doesn't, and tax dollars. How do you believe that New Mexico can diversify its economy on taxes or away from the gas and oil industry, which puts a lot of tax money into the budget that the legislature uses?
Well, Ms. Baca, you know, they've been saying that we're going to run out of gas and oil, and I've been hearing about that for a long time. Major magazines used to do studies on it's going to run out way before now. That being said, I can't predict that. I don't think anybody truly can when it comes down to the bottom line. But yes, we need to diversify. There's no question about that, okay? And that's the reason why the permanent fund, the severance tax permanent fund, was such a big boon for our state. Thank goodness some legislators a number of years ago had the foresight to establish that. And it's generated, what now, almost $20 billion? And they want to keep tapping into that to take out of that. And I'm saying, ooh, wait a minute. I'd say that's your principle. One thing my grandfather told me a long time ago, don't touch your principle, okay? And it makes sense to me. A lot of these things are commonsensical. So, yeah, we need to diversify as much as we can. Well, mining, I didn't mention mining as a small business, you know. We've unfortunately gotten away from mining, and that was one of the mainstays of this state way back in the early times. In fact, part of the land grant permanent fund allocated money for miners and their welfare, hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. So we're very rich minerally speaking. And I think as long as we're able to, I think we need to safeguard those as much as we can, parcel them out. I got to stop again. Okay.
You can finish up.
The San Juan Basin up there in the northwest is supposedly the largest reserves of natural gas. I mean, look at that, folks, and coal up there. And I mean, we've just got a lot of mineral deposits all over, apparently still, that would do a great job of funding us. And of course, uranium is one of those words that nobody wants to talk about, but I worked up at Grants, New Mexico. Well, okay, I got to stop.
Wrap it up.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Well, you mentioned, the infrastructure needs down in our community in the district. Many years ago, and Austin, you brought up the question about transportation. There's been numerous studies that the county has done to talk about the needs and the priorities of the district. And many years ago, it was flooding. It was roads.
Yes.
It was parks. And then, because for whatever reason, the transportation became an issue. But there is still big time needs for the infrastructure in those communities that you'll be representing. How are you going to address the needs, say for instance, when it comes to the flooding that happens every year in places like Vado and Mesquite?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I remember very vividly in 2014, I think it was, when I was running for county commission. Thank God I had my Jeep. And we traveled down through Barino, Vado, other areas too. And that was a rainy year. It was in August, if I remember right. And a lot of flooding. And I talked to a lot of people in through those areas, and they were so saddened because they said, you know, we had petitioned the county numerous times to come in and help us. These are folks, like you say, a lot of that's farming area out there. They had the machinery. They said, just give us some materials. We will provide the equipment, the hands-on stuff, the sweat labor, and we will improve the roads out here. But I thought, man, these folks, and I saw it myself. Like I said, I had a Jeep, so I can get in through there and navigate. They couldn't. And these people couldn't get to work because there were ponds, there were lagoons out there. It was horrible. We do definitely need to do something about the infrastructure in those areas, the colonials as they're called. But these people were crying, and they repeatedly told me they'd gone to the county. I said, well, vote me in and I'll do what I can. I assure you I would. And so I experienced that firsthand. But what they did instead was they went ahead and got an extension of the bus line down there. That's another issue. I can talk to you a long time about that and how they did that. And I thought, well, no, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The buses couldn't even get into those areas, okay? But here, the roads come first, folks, before you get the buses in there. Or their transportation. So people have neighbors and everybody, they have a way of working out transportation under these conditions. They've done it. It's not right, but it's happened.
Awesome.
As a long time teacher, principal, been in the school system, you must have an idea what you can do to help New Mexico get from last place in education. The education it's just bad, and I don't want to put my children in any schools here because of where it's at. What are you willing to? What can you do to help the education in your area?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Trout. As a principal, I really did a lot of thinking on these things. And number one, and as a teacher, it's called expectations. Think about that word. Expectations. Have you asked your kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Have you asked your kid, what is your reading level? See, we talked a lot about the kids and this and that, and we're looking around for who do we put the blame on for this challenge we have, the horrible ranking we have in education. I know for a fact, I taught at Gaston. I taught at Gaston High School. I taught chemistry, physics. And these kids, they do these things. But you know what? And I can tell you exactly how that all happened, in my opinion. Okay, you raise it, you let them know, first of all, you can do this. But when I keep hearing, oh, we're a poor state, our kids aren't succeeding, this and that, I said, that's nonsense. They can succeed. I can tell you name after name after name about kids that have succeeded. They're doctors and they're lawyers, et cetera, and they're from our area. Gaston's a prime example of that. Okay, and I will brag on that, quite frankly, because it has happened and it continues to happen. So we're playing that we're the victims. We're the victims of poverty, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, it comes back to what I said earlier. It's about self-accountability. That you can do this. I mean, we live in this wonderful country, this wonderful state, that you can be anything that you want to be, and that's been proven time after time after time. Where is that American spirit of, I can do it, okay?
And as much as I agree with you, and everything you said, I agree with you to the fullest. If you have to put yourself into accountability as the parent, as the child, but also, from what I have experienced, I went to a private school as a kindergartner. When I got out, the private school was about 2 grades ahead of public school. When I put my daughter in the same private school, which did the exact same things as when I was looking at like, I didn't. Anyway, she came out about 5-6 grades ahead of the public school. Now, as much as I would love to say my daughter, she is extremely smart. She takes after her father.
Of course.
But at the same time, it was the public school that changed. It wasn't that the private school, it stayed the same. Shout out to College Heights Kindergarten. It was the public school that got, in a sense, dumbed down more and more and more. This No Child Left Behind, this testing, these things that I feel like are not working. I know that there are exceptions to the rule and there's very smart, but as an overall, looking at the public school system, that system is not working. And these tests and such now is not working. Is there anything you can do to help fix that part?
Well, of course, we all can. Where do I start on this one? Okay,
got a minute
I might also say that I had the honor of serving as the chairman of a charter school in Anthony. And parents want their children to be successful. We all do, okay? And so it all starts at home. The parents are the child's first teachers, not the state.
That's right.
Let me emphasize that. We parents are our child's first teachers. And research shows that by the time a child's about 7 years of age, they've already formed their personality. You can see it emerging, okay, the characteristics that they have. And research says by the time a kid is 10 to 12 years of old, they have this world view of what's going around them. Hypocrisy is one of them, and they don't like hypocrisy. And we keep telling them, don't do as I do, but do as I say. And kids don't do that very well. But we've lowered our standards, okay? Again, it goes back to expectations. We've lowered our expectations, okay? I think that kids can do a lot more than we give them credit for doing, and they can do a lot more. The experiences I had, we do a lot of peer tutoring. I've had teachers, I've learned so much. I had 12 full-time kindergarten teachers in one of my campuses I was a principal of. 12 full-time kindergarten teachers, okay? I learned a lot from them. Read the book. All I learned in kindergarten, for example, okay? And so it's a personal thing. You get, and teachers, bless their heart, they've worked so hard to do the things that they're supposed to do, but we've encumbered them with so many obstacles, teachers can't teach. Okay, thank God I got started when I could teach. I guess that's what they called it. I did what I could. So anyway, I ran short of time.
Can you cut their hands loose?
Yeah.
Would you be able to cut their hands loose? 'Cause if the teachers have their hands tied.
Oh yes,
and they
teachers
can't
have
teach.
their hands tied. My heart goes out to teachers, okay? I'd say that, well, look, these are trained professionals, okay? Let's treat them like professionals, okay? What I started doing in one of my campuses after I got some experience was we started doing our own in-service. You know, most people at that time, well, you hire consultants, lots of money, bring them in, tell them what the latest there and here in New York City, no offense. And meanwhile, you got professionals, experts right there on your own campus. They know your kids better than anybody else. Why not use them? I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away.
All right, Shirley.
Well, and along that same line, and you've touched the top of the iceberg on some of them, but I'm going to just hit to something that New Mexico is dealing with in education now. And what should New Mexico do to meet the requirements of the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit?
Well, you know, the state constitution is very clear that to provide a positive work environment. I got a copy of it. I can read it off to you if you're going to know that. But, you know, what is the equalization formula all about? Okay? How many people actually know the ins and outs of the equalization formula that the state uses? I understand it's rather complicated, this and that, okay? But, you know, why not maybe just use, let's have some fun with this. Why not use a voucher system? Why not go ahead and the money that's allocated to these children, every child gets the same amount of money, but then they have special needs, et cetera, allocated in this way. Okay, we understand all those things, that's fine, okay? And then give those parents that money and then let them pick their school, okay? Put it on a competitive basis. You see, I don't think we have enough competition. Everything, we live in a competitive world. And whether we like it or not, it's about competition, and kids need to learn as early as possible that you live in a competitive world. We've got to prepare them for that, okay? And counseling in schools, you know, I'm serious, but no offense, but we misuse a lot of people. Counselors are used as quasi-administrators, the experience I've had. They use them to do a lot of the paper shuffling stuff because everybody's got a lot to do anymore, okay? So as a principal, you look around. I did all my own master scheduling, which ask principals, how many do their own master scheduling? I hand scheduled every single kid in my building.
Well, Mr. Wendler, the thing is that Martinez was dealing with special ed, and Yazi was dealing with Navajo kids on a reservation, which, if you've been up in the southeast quadrant, the Eastern Nation as they call it, for the Navajo Nation, it's very, very rural and very sparse. And you mentioned special ed. Vouchers in that case does not give you a lot of options. So you say, give them a voucher and let them make a choice. Well, when you're living in a chapter house area that's an hour's drive to the next community, how are they supposed to meet those choices?
Ms. Bach, I worked up in Grandson, New Mexico at high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was familiar with Navajo. I was familiar with the Laguna Acoma, very traditional. Okay.
I know, but answer my question, please, about choices and vouchers.
Well, I'm coming to that, please.
Okay.
I found those children to be like any other children. They wanted to be successful. Okay. And I think maybe, personally, I think we ought to maybe turn more autonomy. They're supposed to be sovereign nations. Are they really truly sovereign? Okay. I would ask that question first of all. I would like to entertain the idea of turning over more authority to those nations and let them truly be sovereign, that they can take care of their children better than perhaps some others can that don't have the sensitivity to their needs. And so I'd say let them be sovereign, okay? See what they think about that.
The ones living on the reservation are sovereign, and particularly the Navajo Nation and the incorporated pueblos, the 23 pueblos. A lot of them are the children of Native American status that are living in the urban areas, but certainly in the rural areas on the reservations are sovereign and are managed by their own government.
All right, well, I wish we had more time, but you got all the time today, Mr. Chuck Wendler. So we could probably go another hour, and it's been said to us before.
I feel like we're just getting into it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very honored. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And again, I really commend you all for setting up this venue. We should be doing this all the time. It's about the issues and about the candidates. You know, do people really know these? And the way that people vote, I'm telling you, this is great stuff. I thank you, truly. Thank you.
Well, you got one. I'll give you one more minute just to go ahead and look into the camera and the viewing audience. Ask them for your, let them know who you are. You got a minute to ask for the votes.
My name is Charles Chuck Wendler. I'm running for State Senate District 38. And I really would appreciate your vote, folks. I know you have choices. We all have choices. That's what it's all about. Our lives are a series of choices. But I would ask that you sincerely think about the content of the character, not the color of the skin. I mean, Martin Luther and John F. Kay, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I'm in that mode, folks, honestly. I'm a public servant. I just really diligently want to serve what it is that you need. I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm still at it after all these years and these trials, and I really feel like I have the experience. And I've got 2 ears that I really try to use, and only one mouth, okay? And I do have a size 12 to 13 foot, okay? Somebody said something earlier about a big foot. And I do have big shoes to fill. And that's what I would attempt to do. We need stability in the Senate. The Senate has been the stopping point for a lot of these issues. Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Wendler, for coming and joining us today. I'd also like to say thank you to the folks that have been watching. Austin, Shirley, this was the first time that we didn't have both the candidates here with us. We had all the time with Mr. Wendler. What was your opinion? How do you guys think in answering your questions? Shirley?
Well, I'll take. I thought he answered the questions, just fine. I liked what he said, how he said it. Even on some of the issues I didn't agree with, I still liked him because he was real about how he felt and his point of attack, so to speak.
Yeah. Shirley?
I'm disappointed that his appointment didn't come, because I did feel that Mr. Wendler did give his well-researched and honest opinion, and as Austin said here, we don't always have to agree with everything everybody says. I don't know if I'd agree with everything that his opponent would have said, but at least I would have been able to hear that individual's perspective. And when the audience hears your perspective and hears how you speak and how you discern issues and questions that are presented to you, I think it makes a big difference. And I really appreciate that Mr. Wendler did come and spend his time with us and the listening audience and the viewing audience so that they could get an idea of who he is and what some of his thoughts and ideas are should he be elected to the Senate.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I would sit there and think that, you know, is there an advantage to just being the only person on the hot seat per se? You know, but with commentators like both of you, I mean, I really saw that you guys were trying to get him to answer the questions. I mean, there was a couple of times you had to go back and just, you know, can you answer the, you know, get to the question. I think there was a lot of ideas in there, but, you know, there was some, you know, how are you going to bring jobs to this area? You know, so I thought when he was going to the education, I thought both of you guys were doing, you know, trying to get him to come out, and I think he finally sort of did. And it is, you know, important for them to answer the question. So I really appreciate both of you when you're trying to get, you know, the person to answer the question.
But Arturo, we've seen this with many of the other candidates in the past too. Sometimes they just give you a very generic or a very general answer and they don't get down to specifics. Maybe they don't want to commit themselves. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they didn't do the research and they really don't understand the implications of the questions that we're asking. But even then, I think that Mr. Wendler he was honest. And he spoke from his heart, and I felt like he was being honest with us and the viewing audience, the voters.
Again, I just want to say thank you both for the work and coming out and asking these questions. And I think that's something that I'm taking from both of you that we need to work on, is to be a little bit more, when we see that they're giving us a brush, polished, or generic answer, that we should go ahead and just, you know, respectfully interrupt and say, can you please answer the question? And I think that's something that we can work on with the next few candidate forums that we have. We're in the halfway point, so it's been pretty interesting. It's been a learning experience, but I thought you guys did a great job.
I think you did a great job too, and I want to say to the other candidates that still haven't had the chance to come in, if there's a fear of the sanitation or the lack of the safety, I'm compromised, and I'm very cautious about where I go and what I do. I do wear my mask. That's a choice I make. We do have our little plexiglasses, even though it's not, you can't necessarily see it on the camera, but and then you yourself, Arturo, presented the certificate that was given to the station. So sometimes I don't want candidates to use that as an excuse. I know we're not going door to door like we used to, and as Mr. Wendler said, he loved going door to door. I loved going door to door when I was a candidate. You really learn a lot from people. But if you don't come to the forums, how are the voters going to get to know what your stand is on particular issues and what you think of? So,
all right, well, that wraps up our candidate forum today with District 38, Senate District 38, with Mr. Chuck Wendler. On Wednesday, we'll be meeting with Mr. Rick Little for his representative district with, I think his candidate also refused to show. But we will have Mr. Rick Little here on Wednesday at 7 p.m. I want to say thank you very much to our commentators. I want to say thank you to Southwest Organizing Project, Mesilla Valley Transportation, and the Las Cruces channel. And most importantly, I'd like to say thank you to the viewing audience. And this is what we're doing it for, is for all of us and you guys to have an opportunity to meet the candidates and ask questions. So with that, I'd like to say, live to vote, vote to live. Have a good night. Thank you.
think of MBT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MBT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MBT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.